Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our podcast, our webcast, the Power of Storytelling and Driving Business Decisions webinar. We're going to be starting in a minute or so. We just want to let people sort of catch on to the sound settings and settle into their seats and enjoy our webcast for today. So we'll just give everyone a minute, and we'll be right back with you here. All right, I think our attendees joining is leveling off a little bit. They're still coming in one by one here a little bit, but I think we can get at least started here. So hello again, everyone. Thanks thanks for waiting around for us here. And I'm Andrew Vaitunas. I'm a senior solutions engineer at Lanza, and with me today, I've got the great pleasure of having Dan Cardno, who has flown all the way into the webcast from Texas, and I'll let him introduce himself. Dan?
Yes, hello everyone. As you can probably tell by my accent, I am here in Texas, in Houston. I'm a part of the solutions team for Yellowfin, so I'll be hopefully giving some interesting insight into the different mechanisms of storytelling with data, and hopefully it all resonates with everyone and adds a little bit of value.
Right, thanks, Dan. Now, throughout this cast, you can submit your questions. Somewhere up on the top here, you're going to see a place where you can submit questions. So we're going to have time at the very end of the webcast to answer some selection of those questions, depending on how many there are. We might have time for all of them, or we might not have time for all of them, but we'll see. So, but in the meantime, also, if you have any issues with video or sound quality, please write a note, not in the questions, but there's another place where you can write a note in I believe it's called the chat. Yeah, it's in the chat, and we'll have someone try to take care of that. So, all right, so let's get into how data storytelling can impact your business. All right, so today what we're going to cover is a number of things, and Dan's the expert. I'm here to back him up and provide a little bit of entertainment, but what is data storytelling? So that's kind of question. It's not just reports and graphs and things like that. There's more to that. So, and what are the benefits of doing all of that? How is data storytelling bridging that gap between data and decisions, right? So you've got all this data, your order quantities, your sales history and everything. How do you turn that into something that can help you and your executives make better decisions, right? More on-time decisions and everything. And we're also going to, as I said, have that Q&A session to allow you to get some answers to specific questions that we may or may not have covered fully within the webinar. And also, of course, if you haven't understood everything that we've put across today, that we've discussed, or you still have some more questions, then please, at the end, we'll also give you an address, right, to an email address where you can send all your queries, and we'll have someone call you up and discuss whatever it is you have questions about. So Dan's in control of the PowerPoint, so we'll let him move this forward. So Dan, what is data storytelling? I have some ideas, but please give me your idea what this is.
Well, data storytelling is a mechanism of, I guess, making the underlying data more accessible to people. People react and intake and ingest data in different forms, and one of the most common ways of interpreting data is through sort of previously charts and now sort of latterly different visualizations. So it's a mechanism of taking different visualizations to help to interpret the underlying data and sort of ultimately come to decisions about how data can be refined moving forward. So we'll see in the little presentation that I'll give in just a while how the sort of storytelling helps to build some context around the underlying data to refine processes moving forward. So it's a mechanism really of making the underlying data a lot easier to ingest and make it more sensible very quickly, really is the point.
So we might talk about that a little bit more, but how is that really different than what we used to do with green bar reports and maybe graphics and things like that? Mm-hmm. Is it really that different?
It is really. One of the things that I often talk about during these sort of presentations is an article, a blog that was written a couple of years ago that sort of had the quite sensational headline claiming that dashboards were dead. The idea really was that, and this sort of article was written largely to sort of promote a piece of software, but it came out with some very interesting questions. The sort of old style charts that we had, the sort of green for good and red for bad, those sorts of things, were fine to a certain audience, but they weren't enough to help people dissect the data. There weren't the controls specific to individual users that made them quickly relevant to the sort of story that we're telling. So yeah, it's a lot different to those sort of traditional early dashboards that we have, particularly when it comes to refining them and sort of slicing the data to make it more usable.
Okay, all right. So we'll get a chance to see what those types of differences are today, I guess, eh? So
absolutely, yeah.
All righty. Go ahead. So,
no, I was just going to say, I think the next couple of slides talk a little bit more about those as well. So I've sort of stepped on the next slide here. The sort of definition is as it's stated here, is the art of blending that data narrative with the actual raw underlying data. So yeah, there are certainly some some things in that we'll illustrate during the presentation.
Cool. All right. And parts of the ways that storytelling is put across and where it all comes from. Where are we getting all this data from, by the way?
Any number of places. So what we'll see is a story that sort of references, and as we'll sort of see, we sort of sit in this sort of intersection here in this this sort of Venn diagram that represents the sort of data that we're pulling in, the narrative we're building, and the sort of visuals that enforce that. But in the case we're going to be looking at, we are looking at some sort of random data that sort of pulls in some sales information and molds it into a visualization. But the point really is you can incorporate data from any number of different data sources. In fact, I'll point out that you can, with the stories section that we'll look at here, you can even incorporate third-party tools. So if you have a visualization in, for example, Tableau that you really like, you can embed that into your story and sort of really augment the information and the data into one single location.